Uh, do we want to start on what we were talking about pre-show, or do we want to start with the list here? Or it's I don't even remember if we talked about the privacy risk. And I'm not, at the end of the day, I don't like Apple, but I don't think there's a single device out there that's satisfactorily secure right now, which is why it surprised the heck out of me when we were talking that so many people, security is actually something they think about when buying these devices.
Well, I would say this, and when I went ahead and said, I hate this. We're more and more using smartphones, and I'm beginning not to even want to call them smartphones anymore.
No, they're a link device, is what they are.
Yeah, the phone is becoming a smaller and smaller piece of it. Even though to me that's really the most important part for me, but for a lot of people it's not the most important. However, that's a digression. The more we use them and the more we put on them and the more we push them exposes new technologies and then of course new exploits that arise from those add-ons to these systems. So it's not to say that it wasn't secure before, but if it keeps growing at the rate that it is doing, and we keep adding features and new features, but like, for instance, even when Android adds something, what are the headlines coming out? Oh, there's a found breach, and the new feature that Android added. Oh, Apple just added Siri, but Siri now has exploits that can be used against iOS. And every time at this pace that we keep accelerating with all these features, of course, the nature of the beast is that we're going to have these exploits that go along with it.
Well, like you're saying, I mean, the nature is it works better when it's open and there's no shields up, but with no shields up, if there's a hole and somebody has a nefarious intention, they will exploit it. It's people, I don't know how many people today remember the really early famous hackers, but I mean, like Captain Crunch. He was using the whistle from a Captain Crunch thing because he realized he could make the same tones that the phone system was built on, and he could give it instructions to do things. The system was open to allow anybody to give it instructions because it was, assumed, well, people would not be giving it erroneous instructions. Same things with people who were stealing data before it was actually illegal. FTP originally was a completely open protocol. The anonymous user was enabled by default. Anybody had access to all the information. There were people who used that as basic science. There were people who used that to screw with people. And there were people who used that openness to steal. And that's, it's what the person brings to it, not necessarily the technology. Okay. If anybody cares, the iPod is now 10 years old. And I'm like, I don't know who cares. Like, honestly.
I owned an iPod and it broke within 6 months, and then I got a replacement, and that one broke within a little over a year. Never went back.
Wait a minute. I thought Apple products never fail.
It was the silver one. It was like aluminum. Small, what do they call it? It was like a mini nano, or the nano. What's it? The nano? I don't remember. I actually have it. I tried to repair it myself. I have the guts laying around somewhere.
That was one of the problems with the early. Some of those early iPods had they had tried to cram too much stuff in them. They got better down the road, particularly when they switched over to purely solid state stuff as opposed to spinning drives and stuff. But I don't
remember what year. I can look it up. Let's see. It was this model. It just might have been.
Well, there's a certain amount of infant mortality, but I'm the same way. I've bought from people where I get infant mortality than infant mortality, and I'm like, I understand a certain percentage of stuff is just bad, and it could have been I just had the bad luck of the draw, but at the end of the day, it's in the back of your mind, I got 2 of them.
There we go. It was an iPod Nano 2nd generation.
Okay, those were solid state.
and that was the one that broke twice. It was the aluminum silver one that I owned.
Okay, I have no direct experience with the Nanos, because I just didn't. The only iPods I directly messed with were the Classic, which I think they still make, but they've kind of neglected, and I don't think they have any interest in really doing anything with it anymore. They're like, no, you must have a touch. Oh, iPods must be touch.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what's funny is I've owned this badass, which is the Microsoft Zune HD.
Uh-huh.
Yep, hasn't broken once, and I'm about to tell you how long I've had it. I know it's well over a year.
Nice.
I know it's well over a year, and I just don't remember what year I purchased it.
If that's the same one you've been doing videos on, it's at least 2 years, if not 3.
I think it is 2 years. I do. I think it is 2 years. I'm checking my. I bought it on Amazon, so I'm checking my Amazon just to confirm that I got it then. Yep, I got it 2009.
Okay, that would be a 2. You know, 11 minus 2 is a 9.
My iPod Nano broke twice. First time 6 months, they replaced it. The second one broke after a year. This badass going 2 years strong.
Well,
plus, I don't know why Microsoft killed it. I don't, quite honestly, I didn't like the iPod interface. I like Microsoft's, like the Windows 8.
Okay.
I like that on these devices, not for my desktop. But I like the interface on this Zune HD. It's fantastic.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I think where Apple personally screwed up on the iPods is the classic of the iPod was that it had that wheel button thing. And that made it, basically you could navigate the thing with just your thumb. You held it and you navigated it with just your thumb. As soon as they got rid of that and moved it to this touch UI that they're now taking all the basically all the iPods are going to become like the iPod Touch in lesser degrees. And the reality is you cannot do an interface like that one finger. So it makes the device less. It makes it more like the iPhone, but it takes away the simplisticness of an iPod. And actually, when you start getting into that, like you're saying, others, media's designed for Android, media center's designed for Android, the Zune interface, which some of which has been worked into Windows 8, the WebOS, they have that multi-function touch UI done a little more elegantly. Apple's is very, very simple, which, simple's not always elegant, not always it's one of those things. They've been living in the one button, one finger, one everything world a little too long. They've forgotten how to multitask. They may learn again. I don't know. It's not, okay. Do we want to get into the Yobs quotes, or do we want to cover the cheaper prices, or do we want to go off on that tear you were going off about the lens?
The Apple lens?
Yeah, or do you just want to...
Because I'm definitely going to do my own video on that, too.
Okay, we'll bring it up.
No, I mean, sometimes actually, you and I have conversations on your show, even before I get to which I like. Sometimes it's the same night that I have 4 extensions recording the video on my channel. But people will get a preview of the information if you were to post it before. If you were actually to publish it before I published mine, it would technically be in correct chronological order.
I'm trying to get better about that. I should get better about that later this year. Just right now, we have 4 hours of stuff from Tuesday I haven't even sat down and looked at yet. It's like,
but we can go over some of these quotes. But I mean, let's see. We don't have to go over all of them.
No, I just want to go over the interesting ones.
The stylus one. As soon as you have a stylus, you're dead. Steve Jobs is dead wrong on that one. I prefer a stylus for many things. Nobody can argue that a finger can be as precise. So I don't know what world Jobs lived in.
Well, the other thing I find hysterical about that is, according to this story, the inspiration for the iPad was a Microsoft sales rep. And I just kind of have to giggle at that. That's right up there with the one like LSD gave him the inspiration. I'm like, oh. Then again, I've never really understood why certain drugs are illegal, but drugs are bad.
Yeah, I agree with Jobs on this one, because they're still saying it now after he's dead, and they're rubbing it in. This thing about being abandoned. I don't buy any of that crap. You don't have recollection when you're a baby and all this other stuff. I mean, how old was he when he got adopted?
I don't even know. He was not old. But yeah, he didn't know his kid. I mean, he didn't know his parents. I think he eventually found his dad.
Yeah, how old was he when he was adopted? Is my question.
He found his sister. Okay.
And his mom.
Yeah, he did. But I mean, I want to know when the hell he was adopted. I want to know what his age was.
He wasn't that old. I think he was basically given up almost at birth.
So I'm going to assume. Yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is that I agree with him at his point in saying, and he quotes this, he goes, there's some notion that because I was abandoned, I worked very hard so I could do well and make my parents wish they had me back. But that's nonsense. I agree. But they're using that against him at the end of this day. Oh, his personality is this way because he was abandoned and all that, and he was harsh with people. No, I actually know quite a few people that have very similar similar behavior with people. That can be very friendly at one time, and then all of a sudden be extremely cold.
Well, that's at the basis of the nature versus that's at the basis of the nature versus nurture argument. It's going to depend on the individual greatly.
Yeah, I'm so sick of that, and I agree with Jobs. I wish people would give that up.
Yeah. Let's see. When you're dying, you have to make sure you continue living. I didn't quite manage to do that one.
The juice goes out of Christianity when it becomes too based on faith rather than living like Jesus or seeing the world as Jesus saw it.
Yeah, this is one of the reasons that certain people who you don't want to give credit to have a problem with him, and they'd have a problem with me and a lot of people I know too, because there's a lot of people who are starting to feel that way about certain religion and other stuff. It's kind
of, it became more spiritual to a dogma, maybe not in total, according to the monarchy. That the one quote. Let me say the one quote that I really liked him saying was his quote about children and how his life changed and how much he liked it. And that one thing that was so true, because he put it very eloquently, was that you wear your heart outside your body when you have children, and you're so susceptible and sensitive to things. And I can vouch for that 200%. I will break and just crumple to nothingness on things, especially pertaining to children, that when I was not married and all that, was Mr. Macho and would laugh at. And now I could be brought to my knees emotionally on things. It's just amazing. He's so right.
Now you're making me wonder if I'm sane and wanting to have kids someday.
No, it's as John explained, it's 1,000. It's like 1,000 times better than you never imagined. He said it was 1,000 times something. I don't know the exact words, but you can't. God, the feelings, you can't explain it, and that's the joy of it. It's the man. And it takes very little. One little stare and a smile from your child, and your entire week has been made.
I have a theory on that, and that is, it's an evolutionary response that babies and children in general are cute. Because if they weren't, some of the things they do, we would kill them. But they smile and they grin, and all of a sudden we're confused. That is an evolutionary response. It has to be.
Well, hey, we found our Android thing. Remember we were talking about putting iTunes on Android? Here it is. We put iTunes on Windows in order to sell more iPods. But I don't see any advantage of putting our music app on Android, except to make Android users happy. And I don't want to make Android users happy.
Yeah, no, he had a hard-on for destroying Android. He wanted it dead. I still think it would be a great thing for Apple.
Something happened between Schmidt and him. I'm sorry, because I know he was pissed and peeved, but because it's it's what is it, 20 years ago, more 20 plus years ago. It's not as fresh. I guarantee you it's as personal with Microsoft. It's just now so much time has gone by. If we were to give it another 20 years, and Android,
we can't give it another 20 years. He's dead, Jim.
Android would be far larger. I'm sure Apple would continue to make money, but I know just by Apple's model, Android lends itself to being larger. That 20 years from now, if you were alive, it would be so many layers of time that the freshness of that sharp edge.
I am convinced in 2030, if Apple's still around and they're still based on the culture of Apple is better because Apple says so and yada yada, we are going to have Apple fanboys that are being born 5 years from now telling us, old farts, you don't understand, man. Hey, Google stole from Steve Jobs. They stole his baby. That's what killed him. They're going to be saying that, just like they say with the old, Windows versus Apple OS stuff.
Yeah, but see, I really do. Look, Apple's here to stay. I mean, for a while. Remember it? Yeah, I know we're talking about and worrying, but I'm gonna put my hopes that it stays around and they do, and maybe someone does arise to it, or maybe Tim Cook
okay.
has a brain fart and then becomes very radical.
No. Here's the thing. I agree in some form. There will be an Apple in 20 years from now. Whether or not it will even be relevant is a different matter, because there is still a Disney company. There is still an IBM. There is still like these companies don't just disappear, but they don't necessarily stay really relevant either.
Anyway, I like his quotes on his job to say when a product sucks rather than sugarcoat it. That's a good statement. I agree. I can agree with that.
The only problem I have with that is, and this has been my problem with Apple indefinitely, and there have been fanboys over the years that have stood up and said, no, he's not really like that. That's just how you Apple haters are trying to portray him. One thing this book could do retroactively to his reputation, because this is literally his own words. And it's his own words saying, yes, I am that person. And that is, his personality was what's right for me is right for everybody, which isn't always an ironclad rule. So there were times where that created rubs everywhere. It's at the end of the day, it's that's the Steve Jobs Apple. You want Apple to continue that way. They don't have anybody in their arsenal right now in their current hierarchy to continue that way. So they might have to get a little bit more moderate to survive. Otherwise, but I don't know if they can. It's like, because what makes Apple sell is that it's that far over the line. It's galvanizing. You're either an Apple or you're not.
Yeah. Now, here's the one I disagree with, but it's probably, you know what, and I got to really think about this. I guess if I were in his shoes, I'll agree with it, because when I think about it, it's just because I find it insulting to me, and I'm sure it would be insulting to him.
Are you talking about the next one, number 11, or the one after?
Yeah, people don't know what they want until you show it to them.
Yeah.
See, I fully know what the hell I want. It's just not. No, it's not there. And many times, I know exactly what would make my life better.
But yeah.
You know, but I can guarantee you, most of the time I get products, and no, if it may do partial services that I want, but then I feel like I'm getting ripped off because the majority of the device doesn't provide really what I would want it to do anyway. And I bet you Steve Jobs, from even he gets frustrated with products. I remember he was on a stage and he had like several devices, and he said, "Yeah, I've tried this and it wasn't quite right. I've tried this." And this is when he was an Apple advisor. He was sitting on a stool. I forget. And he was very candid. He was talking with developers, and I remember, and he was going over how he would just go through products. Now, but you know what? I can't disagree with him. The majority of people really don't know what they want. Honestly, I mean, we say that ourselves, do we not?
Well, at the end of the day, what the rub with that with users like you and me is, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your point of view, we are not the average user. Which means we're aware that, you know what, if they just fucking used this, it would do this, this would do that, and it would do what I want it to do. Why didn't they do that? And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your point of view, the average user doesn't look at it that way. They're like, it's not. And in that respect, I get what he's saying. But in the respect of what you're saying, because I'm the exact same way, yeah. And really, Jobs is one of those users. Nobody could tell Jobs what he wanted. Jobs said, "I want this," and that was what he made an Apple product. He made it the product he wanted. So it was really a product made for him that he just subsidized by selling it to a bunch of people using marketing. So, he wouldn't buy that argument. Nobody could tell him that, in my opinion. But average user, that's probably true. But that's also something that, comments like that, I'm seeing that break some of the Apple fanboy shield. Because that's essentially going...
No, but a lot of Apple fanboys like that because they like to be astonishingly loud. I will admit that there's some great excitement to life for many, and that's fine. I've come to terms with, and that's why I'm going to do a short digression here. That's why I get angry, and I'm mostly now, my anger is not focused at consumers anymore. And I never really had anger. My frustration about technology is no longer focused at consumers. It is focused at these tech pundits like Gruber, John Gruber, and others like Topolsky, and that their place is definitely needed because there are many Apple basher pundits out there. Like that Paul, what's his name, Paul Turret or something like the third? I forget his name.
I'm not sure I'd call him an Apple basher. I'd call him an MS fan, which is a difference.
Yeah, but Gruber's place is needed.
If you have a yin, you need a yang. Yes.
Yeah, you do. But I guess I just wish that Gruber would approach it differently. Because I have respect for the man. And I never knew about him for years until people started tweeting some of his posts, and I was like, yeah, he's got. I guess what frustrates me is he's got great insight in some things, and then just totally bombs on others, in my opinion. And so I get frustrated more now with pundits and things like that than I do with consumers.
You realize technically you and I are both pundits.
Of course.
Hi, pot! Hey, kettle!
and with that, I wanted to make a parallel. People, I agree that like Grubers are needed. And here's Jobs saying, when he took over in 1997, the only reason I want to do it is that the world would be a better place with Apple, and I agree.
Yeah, you and I are never going to agree on that one. It's like...
You are so full of crap. Did you realize if Apple wasn't in the game, what would competition be like? And where, I think we would get much more empathetic. A Wintel alliance would be much more powerful today than it is. Let's be frank. I don't care.
Wait. Apple gave in to the Wintel alliance.
No, they didn't, because oh, you're saying about Intel going into their...
Yeah, they basically run the same stuff.
Yeah, but listen, Frank, to Steve Jobs, the desktop is dead in his mind, okay? And so he was only seeing, because he already knew the plans of the iPhone was already out, essentially. It was going to come out that a year and a half from then. And then the iPad was already on the drawing boards and ready to go to conceptualization. And I've learned that Jobs was in the early game blinded by the Intel spin and Kool-Aid, because he wanted to go with the Intel chips into the tablet, even in the iPhone. But there was a guy named Fidel.
So he was drinking the world must run on Adam's Kool-Aid.
He put his Apple badge on the table and says, "If you don't go with ARM, I quit." And so Jobs relented, apparently, according to the biography. And then Jobs started insulting.
Wait, what was this guy's name?
Fidel? I've tweeted about it.
Yeah, but it's been a while, man. We need to look up. No, you're looking for somebody who has enough clout, who's insane enough to go, we're going to do this. There's your guy. Somebody who can make Steve Jobs back down. That's your guy.
Oh, come on. It was, wow. It's something, here it is. I'll read it to you. And, alright. He writes that Jobs pushed for the use of Intel chips when Apple was developing its tablet computer, betting on the same technology that powered his company's Macintosh desktop and laptop computers. Intel at the time was developing its low-powered Atom chip, which Jobs favored. Isaacson writes. Intel CEO Paul Otellini was pushing hard to work with Apple on the tablet, and Jobs was inclined to trust him. I heard that the old Intel CEO was like a mentor to Jobs. So I see. Remember? Oh no, I never. This was another person.
It's a known fact that Jobs has always liked Intel.
Jobs' personality, people don't realize, is also very fragile. He can hate or be extremely harsh with other people, but if you say the right things, and like one thing clicks off in his head that, wow, this person, you're in, and he will let you go all the way and pass on the vault doors and just have exclusivity to him. If he has that thought process about you, and that's how he lays trust in people. But here it is. But Tony Fadell, Fadell, then a key leader of Apple's design efforts, now at the startup company Nest Labs.
Oh, they lost him, of course.
Was adamant that the iPad needed the even lower power consumption of chips based on designs from ARM. He felt so strongly about the matter that during one meeting he placed his Apple badge on the table and threatened to resign over the matter, according to the biography. Jobs eventually relented. Indeed, Apple became such a zealot of the ARM that it began designing its own chips based on that technology. So, and it goes on to say, how Jobs starts insulting Intel chips, how they're slow, they're just a steamship, they're inflexible. So, it goes to say that what I'm getting at, which is the main point, is that ARM was in many other products, like the iPods and other things like that, right? And the iPod being very popular, but that wasn't. The iPod is not the paradigm shift to say, which other people are getting on board of. I don't agree with it. You and I don't agree with it, but legions of people and consumers are getting on board of post-desktop and computing on mobile devices such as the iPad and the iPhone. And those, which are in the millions of numbers being sold, are driven by ARM. Think if that was Intel.
Oh no, I know. Well, it wouldn't be able to do it on Intel because of the inefficiency you're talking about. They're just not.
Well, they could have probably worked something out, but what my point of it is that you do need Apples in the world. We need that. We need people competing against each other, or we get apathetic technology. And
well, which Apple almost didn't do. That's why I'm saying it's like it doesn't need to be Apple. As a matter of fact, I think we might have more competition if it was other companies that were less galvanized.
Yeah, the new Apple remains to be seen. Obviously, under Jobs, we knew what we could count on. Yes, the new Apple now remains to be seen. I agree.
Do you want to cover the Dell shutdown advice?
Dell said Apple should shut down and return money to share. Well, didn't Michael Dell say that early on in the 90s?
Yes.
I would have done Jobs. I mean, why would you make a statement anyway, Michael Dell? I know he's in Texas, in Austin, but it's true.
Well, they're bringing up his response. CEOs are supposed to have class. I can see that isn't an opinion you hold. Basically he considered his remarks tasteless. You know what? That's a direct... That is Steve Jobs contradicting himself. Because there's a bunch of quotes where he goes and says, I'm not going to mollycoddle you. I'm just going to cut right through and be an ass if I have to. And then he's telling somebody else who's being what he considers an ass to him. It's like, you can't be an ass. You have to be tactful and polite all the time. That's what a CEO is. I'm like, what? It's like, make up your mind. It's like...
No shit, I didn't know this. See, he was so adamant, man. He goes... This is awesome. I'm glad this book came out. This is fantastic. He said, screw it. I'm sick of listening to you, asshole. Go do whatever the hell you want. This was Jobs relenting.
Yeah.
Everyone at Apple was pushing to get iTunes built for Windows, which is true. See, like I said, haven't I said this on your show more than once that with Apple, Jobs has his mind set on something. And that becomes a layer, and then the masses buy into it. It's magical. It's great, and that's.
And he'll be nice, and he would have been nice to you as long as you agreed with him. But the moment you disagreed or were in his way, you were something to be stepped on.
Yeah, but that's not my point. My point was, I know on our shows, I discuss it more or not. Being a developer for Apple, that developers push back, we bitch and moan, and Jobs gets sick of it and relents. And changes the platform, and you know what? He embraces it. But see, the man, while is inventive, is also extremely stubborn. And the good thing is that you can push him over the stubbornness, that he finally relents, and then embraces what you just did, only to create another wall that you have to push back again.
Which is why I don't get why you argue that Apple is for innovation, because those walls, in my opinion, are standing in the way of it.
Hello, we could say all kinds of other, but I mean, you can get like Microsoft, who was totally innovative, never had a Steve Jobs personality, and got completely apathetic.
Well, there's that aspect too. Stirring the pot, as it were.
People call themselves entrepreneurs. What they're really trying to do is launch a startup and then sell or go. He's right. That is true. People want a quick buck.
No, I happen to agree with that. As somebody who, works for myself, has pretty much been forced to do that in my adult life. You do freelance work. I don't actually know how much of you is you working for yourself and how much of you is working for other people. And yeah. About 50-50.
Well, since I own the software at my W-2 job, I'm technically working for myself 100% of the time. But
in practicality, you'd say it's more 50-50.
Well, if you're wanting to know where, yeah, I mean, but I own all the hospital software that I work on my W-2 job. I don't own the stock analysis software, and I don't own the credit union banking software, and these are like custom project workflow projects for different types of companies. So that's why, one thing I always do with people is I have yet to really make a product. Although I finished developing for an app, I am responsible for the back end of an iPhone app that's coming out for a specific bank. So I did the back end part of it.
Well, that's the other thing. Pretty much any product is the assimilation of piece A, piece B, piece B from different people's innovations. But yeah.
Yeah, I need to really do my own product. It's just I found it that it's extremely profitable at the productivity level that I have to write custom software for people that really makes them happy. It's not like this.
I will tell you something to do, and this is it pains me to do this, but I happen to agree with them. If you're truly an entrepreneur and you're truly innovating, or anything even close, you are literally breaking your favorite rule of opportunity cost. You are literally going against the grain because you think there's a greener pasture on the other side of something that doesn't even exist yet. And there's entrepreneurship, and then there's business. Business is, okay, tweak this, repackage it, take it public, get rich. Entrepreneurship is, it's been a 300-hour week. I don't know how I did it, but I'm ready for another one. And repeat until hopefully you don't die.
I also agree with this. It's still best to meet people face to face. I agree with that. You know, I see this picture with his feet up. I heard in the book that Jobs was.
That's not him.
Yeah, no, I know it's in the movie.
Yeah.
I know. The book is saying that people had to make him shower, and that he would be caught. He'd like to go barefoot, and that he would be caught bathing his feet in his company's office toilet. Okay. Now I am I admit to having a anal retentive compulsive disorder with cleanliness. I have canned Lysol in my office, and do things. Jobs and I, if I worked there, would have serious hygiene breach of personality conflicts.
You wouldn't like me in real life, dude. Dude, half the time I'm wearing shirts with holes in them, or like no shoes, or I just go for a mile walk, come back and crash.
Yes. And I bet you that Jobs would keep me around just to argue with me, because I would keep him on his toes about his ideologies of the cleansing of the human body, and all that stuff, because that's how I got to where I'm at today with my compulsive disorder. So that would be very entertaining to see.
Takes all kinds.
Yeah.
I wonder how long it took him to own a suit. I don't even know if Jobs ever owned a suit.
No, he did. In Silicon Valley, yeah, he had to acquiesce because he kept. Can you imagine when the banks get loans? Probably not showered. Probably wearing flip-flops or something and asking for a loan.
That's how I go to deposit all my stuff. Dude, I'm going into the bank to deposit all my crap with sandals that are falling off my feet. One time I walked in the bank, they fell off my feet. I just kept walking. I didn't care. And the bank doesn't look at me crazy because all my checks clear. Everything I put in, at the end of the day, they care that I'm putting money in there. They don't care what I look like or how I act.
Now, Jobs is way wrong on Bill Gates. Bill Gates is very imaginative and actually is very inventive. The problem is that Microsoft did what Jobs should have said is Microsoft took the easy way out many times. Man, Microsoft had such brilliant products. I was excited in the early days.
And Microsoft would have been perfectly content to do all of that on the Apple platform if Apple had just been willing to grow their base and license out. Mm-hmm. That's all they had to do. And Apple could have benefited almost as much as Microsoft if they had done that, because it would have been about a 30-70 split. Microsoft would have still got more money because at the end of the day they were the ones making the software, but Apple would have been the platform on which it ran, so they would have almost benefited. They would have, but they.
Microsoft does a lot of things very inventively. For instance, excuse me, Jobs, you took BSD and the mop kernel, which was pretty much already in existence, and used Brad's language of Objective-C as the primary. What did Microsoft do? They're actually why is it that Microsoft is extremely different from usually the norm of how Linux procedural logistics works in their operating system in Unix? I actually think the registry was an inventive idea, poorly executed. DLLs, a very inventive idea,
poorly executed.
Yeah, I mean, it's just Microsoft had a lot of inventiveness that was building, except it just it went the cheaper route or decided, well, it's 20% baked, okay, and that is selling out according to Jobs. You know, and that's what he should have said rather than this attack of it being unimaginative. I think Microsoft is very... And this, now, if we are allowed to, I'd like to make a segue, because this will be my counter to the pundits I was speaking about before,
sure.
Which was John Gruber. John Gruber basically said that Microsoft's productivity future vision. He says, this video encapsulates everything wrong with Microsoft. Their coolest products are imaginary, futuristic bullshit. Guess what? We've all seen Minority Report already. Imagine if they instead spent their effort into this movie on making something real. Real, that you could actually go out and buy and use today. Well, let's talk about that, Gruber, because Apple is very much the one that also makes futuristic plans that may not make commercials known to us, but that damn well use inspirational videos to inspire. And I damn well know that Jobs was always on the cusp of that, because Apple was very quick to find great technologies that it also built upon. iTunes, let's take, which is now its epicenter of content, is something that Apple acquired by...
That's Apple's #1 innovation!
So it is. I also want to talk about it. It may be a concept, but that's the same reason why car companies make concept cars. Microsoft, probably been known to Gruber and other pundits, actually, when they make these future things that are based on concepts they have, that the proof of concept might be in a certain stage or whatnot, but it's very real.
Well, there's actually a perfect analytical example of that, since we've digressed. The Xbox. The Xbox was a proof of concept project that, and it had problems in its transition, but that was something they started that way. That's now in millions of households across America and the world.
I don't think Microsoft is doing anything wrong right now. Well, wait a minute. Let me take that back.
They're doing a lot of things wrong. So is Apple. So is Linux.
Yeah. It's not like they're squandering resources when they're trying to make concepts. They are indeed trying to push products out, which John was trying to get at. Well, make products. They are. Do they always work? Probably not. Although I love the Zoom HD, and this thing has lasted far longer than an iPod has for me, and I think they do hit great marks, and they just sat on their ass too long with the mobile market. But let's be frank.
Since we've digressed into the PC v Macishness, we should be frank also. Microsoft always does this. What Microsoft's business model is as of late, for like the last 10 years plus, their business model has been sit back, let everybody else fight over it. Once we know the shape of it, then jump in. And not make the mistakes of the emerging field.
Which is a less risky position than what they used to take, sure. And the thing of it is that Microsoft, I kind of lost my train of thought. I'll remember it again. But anyway, what I want to do is I'm going to put a link, okay, in the show notes for you.
Sure.
And what I would like is you put this link in the show. People can watch it. And this is not the first time they've done a conceptual video. But I want to talk about something in this video on why I praise it and why I like its direction. Do you think you'd get copyrighted if you put this in your show?
Probably would, because they've started getting a little worse on us as of late. Like, they've been flagging stuff almost instantly. I already got a warning on that Babylon 5 clip I put into that PC episode.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Well, what this is that what I like about this future vision, and I've always liked about Microsoft.
You'll find this funny. I can't watch it.
Oh. Why?
They've blocked it from the Linux platform. I'd have to pretend to be Windows.
No. Oh, really?
Uh-huh.
I'm on a Mac.
They've blocked it from Linux. They haven't blocked Safari and OS. But yeah, it's...
Well, what this is that what I like about it is Microsoft is approaching technology from saying, we're going to add our software and technology to your everyday products.
Oh, wait, there it is. Never mind. They didn't... Okay. Anyways, I finally get it.
Why don't you watch it so you can kind of see the context I'm talking. The video starts off with a woman who's wearing her own glasses, and the glasses, she just takes a little thing and it reads it. It's like at the side of her deal. Now, of course, they're trying to show what it does. It probably wouldn't look like that in real life, but they're obviously have to get the idea of what's happening. What I love about the vision of Microsoft is Microsoft is very anti-Apple thinking of what Jobs would have, in that Microsoft is saying, we're not here to change the products you use every day. We want to make your products better. Those glasses that are prescription-based, we're going to add our what shows there, a translation software that'll read it and tell you what it is.
Well, and this is one of the reasons that nanotechnology is basically a license to print money right now, because to do all of this stuff is going to require certain nanotechnology. But this is ultimately what we're going to move to is. I mean, the way we disclose it now is you'd have a business card that works like it does in the movies, where you talk to it and the text on it changes. But what it's really going to be is just a virtual business card, but it's in the form factor you're used to of a business card, and it moves around from your screen to your thing to your yada yada. But it just works, and
that's not the point I'm getting at, though. The point I'm getting at is that Microsoft's approach to technology is what I like in this video. They add technology to your everyday products. They use windows and cars, picture frames, televisions, all kinds of things. Let me ask this question, because the Apple model is really the antithesis of this. Is Apple going to make glasses? They
will if they can make them neon white so you can tell somebody has Apple glasses from 100 yards away.
Yeah, are they going to make refrigerators? Are they going to make microwaves? Are they going to make, it's like, are they going to make the toasters? Microsoft is envisioning saying, keep all your everyday products. We're just here to add technology to them. Whereas Apple's model has always been, we make our own hardware and software, our own products. You must participate in our own world in order to get, to experience our products the best. And Microsoft's not about that. And I've always been a fan of the one-to-many versus the one package.
Well, and that's why I'm saying they need to open up things like their iTunes marketplace. They need to get the idea that somebody is their customer even if they didn't buy a Mac.
About this. Let's say that Android out-accelerates, which it will likely happen in iOS. It will out-accelerate it and become even more and more and more and more prevalent, right? But in other companies, and you're in the Apple ecosystem, of which today is extremely large and there's no problem. But exponentially speaking,
it's going to become
within a walled garden.
Yeah.
If your walled garden that you participate in becomes marginalized, the amount of assets and time of participation that you have acquired by living in that, which is now marginalized, becomes a greater cost later on. You are essentially, when the world outgrows, when it outgrows at a higher pace, faster than the microcosm that is your walled garden grows, then you have technology exclusion effect, which then means you need to play catch up, which is already signs of happening, like in the last,
since you've brought them up, that is also somewhat of a problem with some of the things Microsoft is doing. Like all the things Microsoft's showing in this video, I am sure they would love all of this to run on Silverlight. Except they don't want to make Silverlight accessible to all platforms. They eventually agreed to let Mac have it, but they didn't really want to do that, and that's one of the real problems I have with Microsoft. I would have no problem with Microsoft providing solutions as long as they do it in a completely agnostic way. But at the end of the day, they're doing both this, what you're talking about, but they're trying to also pull an Apple of saying, well, but you really need to use the Microsoft solution at all levels, not use the Microsoft solution with this other thing. Unless they lose the battle, then they'll finally concede the point to save their platform.
But see, and this is what I'm trying to close with, is that, let's take a look at Android. Android's got the same philosophy as Microsoft in this. When I watched the last I.O., Android wants to get into the light bulbs. My common household features. It wants to attach itself to my refrigerator, my toaster, my microwave oven. It wants to network things. That is a model I much more appreciate, because if I live to the Apple model, I have to wait for Apple to actually make the physical hardware for its software to run.
And I actually prefer the Android one to the Microsoft one, because not only are they trying to do that, but they're saying, here is our standard, anybody use it. We don't care. Here's the thing. Here's the standard on which you need to make it to talk to us.
Guess what that does? And guess what that does? By doing that, you marginalize your products and make it plenty, which means I don't have to waste money on a $600 tablet and buy all these expensive gadgets as I go. And as if we use everyday products, like what's envisioned in Microsoft and what Android wants to do, and you make plenty of vendors to compete against each other, you've made it much more consumer friendly in the end. And that's on an exponential number of things. Now, right now, the counter would be, well, nobody can compete with Apple's price and hardware products for iPad. See, I disagree with that. All the analysis and analysts that say the hardware costs a vendor X amount of money is total, that I will say is bullshit. None of these products know how much it costs these companies to make these products. What Apple is doing is making a killing in profit. I think that the iPad costs them extremely little in terms of hardware, and they're just making a killing in terms of profit, and that's why they're extremely they're extremely well off right now.
Depends.
But if you were to take that market, like you have an operating system, and it's shelled out over multiple hardware platforms, of course you get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. Now, the reason why phones become $199 and all this other crap is because that's what the market is willing to pay right now under a 2-year agreement. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, and some of those, I'm not sure. I think it's entirely bullshit. I think it's bullshit on some parts. I think it's not on others. There are development costs. I mean, hell, some of the products that they're selling for $200 subsidized, the prototype cost $150K to make. But then once you mass produce it, each unit doesn't cost $100. But you have to absorb that $150K over the units.
That's like. But it also, which happens in many other industries, what happens is that, especially in the U.S., companies that manufacture phones in here like to participate with the carriers because it's more of a guaranteed return, saying we buy blocks of your phones at massive amounts of volume, make your day happy, and all this other stuff. It's the same way that channels worked in mass volumes of desktops and PCs, and they got marginalized. And look at it today, extremely marginalized product, so much so that people argue to get out of it because it's so marginalized. But that's what you want essentially for the consumer if you're a consumer, right?
I want it, but I also want innovation to be going on, because when it gets too marginalized, and this is what you've been saying the whole time, is basically it doesn't matter which one you buy because they're all the same.
Yeah, but that is a dangerous situation. But it is essentially the most beneficial as a consumer buying technology. So long as new technology keeps coming out, though, then that keeps the marginalization at bay, which means then we have consumer discrimination in terms of this group buys it's like it is, like it is now. But the objective, I'm talking about principled models, the way Apple operates versus the vision and the future that I love and enjoy in this Microsoft video, and also to what Android preaches. I prefer that model because, like I said, Apple's not going to make glasses for refrigerators and toasters.
They might. I can see them now, the new eyesights. Now with better vision. I can see that. You telling me you can't see that ad?
I actually think that this mobile industry is going to probably go even more rapidly than desktops. In its current form, it is a bubble.
It's going to go through a transition of turning from a mobile industry into a desktop replacement industry, but then all the rules of mobile get broken because you can't apply the rules of mobile to desktop replacements. So basically, you're right. In its current form, it's entirely a bubble. The whole thing's just going to go. Okay, do we want to end there, or do we want to end on the next quote, which is funny, actually?
Let's go to the next one. The money one I'm not really interested in.
Okay.
This I like. A great carpenter isn't going to use lousy wood for the back of the cabin, even though nobody's going to see it. That's a good. I like that. Have pride in your products, essentially.
Well, I have a problem with this one. Not that he said it, but that Apple fanboys act like Apple's the only product that does that. An Apple box is not the only one I've opened where there's obvious attention to detail and care was taken. They're just the ones who are most boisterous about it. There are plenty of products in the market that do that. Yeah.
Again, Steve Jobs and Microsoft. I don't agree. Although of late, yes, they're. But you know what? I'm going to give it to Microsoft that tiles and the design of Windows Mobile.
I'm going to say, do you really want to argue that Microsoft has taste seeing Windows 8? It's like
Well, no, Windows 8 is nice if it were on a damn mobile product, not on my desktop. Now, you know what I was going to get at is I was an old Windows Mobile user. You know, back in the you do a lot of productivity. You know, Microsoft had a little bit of benefits. You know,
but yeah, but that UI was.
I used it.
You could use it. I used it on a friend's Trio, and but it was just it. You know what I mean? Is
if you don't cannibalize yourself, someone else will.
No, he was always at war.
But you have to be. You do. You really do.
I prefer vigorous competition.
Come on, call it what you will. It's semantic word.
There's this difference. I don't feel the need to kill somebody to win.
Well, he's not going to literally.
All right.
I have the antithesis of his beliefs in hygiene, health cleansing. I used to be a vegetarian for 5 years as a vegetarian.
I could never effing be a vegetarian.
I was. And I was a vegetarian while I was in the Marine Corps.
Oh my God, you're nuts!
Dude, and this is when they didn't have, nowadays, they have vegetarian MREs. Back when I was a Marine, hell no. There was no such thing as vegetarian MRE. I took more shit. But see, I wasn't a vegan like Jobs. I ate animal products as a vegetarian, just meat to meat. I did this for 5 years. And, I would eat eggs, cheese, and other things. I was on this science thing about uric acid and all sort of shit. But anyway, it was such a bitch to be in the Marine Corps as a vegetarian. And my parents, I would send them money to send me cases and cases of food to survive. It was hilarious how I did this in the military.
I bet you loved it when the mail got lost.
Dude. I know, it's like I can relate to a lot to Steve Jobs, and predominantly, I've always argued, from a position of where I could relate a lot to the man. Even in his diet, although I wouldn't go vegan.
Dude, I would have given some of the conversations we've had, I would rate you more to cook than I would Jobs.
I'm more of a cook?
Yeah. You're
I don't know, because well, you've never seen my artistic stuff. I mean, because you've seen in my editing that I like to get into now, but I've come from a pen and ink world where I used to draw comic books. I just found that there's
when it comes to the business side of things,
I will tell you what though. My life went from, all of my early life was being an artist. I was so much an artist, and I won first place at Neiman Marcus. My painting went up in Neiman Marcus, the local one here at the gallery in Houston. And my painting stayed on display for, I don't know, a year or whatever. And I won from that, and I don't know, I forget what the prize was. It was because I was so young at the time. And won several art awards locally in the city of Houston. Helped start Tempest Comics, which is no longer around. When I was in the Marine Corps, more Marines have tattoos drawn by me than I can count on my hand. I've produced tremendous, just a lot of artwork that's where. And as a matter of fact, when I was going to get out of the Marine Corps, I was going to go work for Disney. I actually applied for Disney. I was set up to go to their. There was a college over there, and I forget the damn name of it, but it was when they were doing illustration still. Animation was starting to catch on, but I was still very much pen and ink. And what was the damn name of that school? And I got accepted, but didn't have the money to go in the end. And I started then getting into the early days of Lightwave, when Lightwave came out, and I hit a rut that artists just didn't make a lot of money.
Yeah, that's pretty much been the trend for the last 10,000 years.
Yeah, it's like now, but today designers can make a lot of money. It's just
they can, but for the most part, artists don't make a lot of money.
Well, and had I got animation, the guys that were here in Houston were just paying so little. Now, I was asked to go move back to San Diego by a firm, and I really wonder had I taken that opportunity, what would my life be like? Because I was going to be in marketing at this company in San Diego right after.
Well, first off, you would have sold your soul. That's the initiation for marketing.
Because see, they already had all my. I had sent them, and they essentially hired me. I remember in '90 they were going to pay me. It was $36K, and I didn't even have a college degree because I didn't go to college in the Marine Corps. So.
That's the thing I find hysterical. You'll laugh at this, but did you know that most graphic design jobs will not hire somebody based on their portfolio? They hire them based on whether or not they have a graphic design degree.
But I didn't have a degree.
No. You could do that back then. Now it's like I find this hysterical because like art is not something you teach. Art is something people are either good at or they're not. That you can teach the techniques, but the skill of art, of being an artist and actually applying the techniques to make art, that's almost impossible to teach. Yet, in the graphic design thing, it's like, no, we don't want artists. We want analytical reproducers. It's like,
and that was 1995. They were going to pay me $36K and move me to San Diego. And man, it was. I can't remember why the hell I chose not to. I'm trying to think. Golly.
I'm assuming you were married at the time.
No, didn't get married until 1999. I got married.
Who was the girl?
What do you mean? Who was the girl? It's my wife now. I've been married.
No. I mean, like at that time.
Who was I dating?
Yeah, because I mean, there's only 3 reasons I know not to take an opportunity. You either really don't want to do it, or you can't take your whatever you want to call them with you. Or
it was so bad. I admit to probably been careless with women back then.
Okay.
It was so bad that I met my wife in college. Oh, that's what it was. I decided to go to college rather than go to San Diego. That's what it was. I decided to go to college, and I went to college at night, and I started doing very technical things. And then I got hired as a digital team leader at the age of 19, I had 12 people under me at the age of 19. And I'll never forget, I had to fire a 43-year-old. They actually asked me, a 19-year-old, to fire a 43-year-old.
And I bet the 43-year-old wanted to jump across the desk and lynch the 19-year-old.
But you know what? You know, it was terrible. I started breaking down and crying.
Well, that's one way to diffuse the situation.
You know, I was so... The company asked me to fire him.
Dude, at 19, that's like being asked to fire your father. Actually, I would do that.
I wasn't bawling, but there were tears coming my eyes, you know, doing it. I was just like, if you have any complaints beyond this, you can take it up with, you know, XYZ person. I don't want to give it now. I almost said their name. I don't want to say. God, I remember I had tears in my eyes, man. And I ran 12 people. And then I started getting really technical. And I found the money, and then I started getting this one. I was very much in IT. And at the age of 19, going into 20, I started doing infrastructure for UT Health and Science Center. I remember that. And we started doing all the HR operations and getting them digital and all this other crap. And I went everywhere. And then I started working at I moved AIG and General Life. General Life made a huge move to Microsoft, and at the age of 20, I was their team leader for the migration. And it was insane that the technical avenue and abandoning art, essentially, in doing that. But I got burned out so fast in doing IT and these. I got so tired of it.
Dude, some of the stuff, and regardless of what facet you're at it in the IT industry and the web industry and other stuff, dude, 3 or 4 years down the road, 10 at most, you're like,
yeah. I would sleep on floors. Like, I remember migrating.
4? You were lucky. I've had times where I haven't slept for 2 weeks. It's like I just lay down and get a 20-minute cat nap.
When you're project leader, you don't leave the building, man, until you have to worry about all things. So you sleep on the floor, you know, you have very little sleep. You're all constantly ordering pizza back then. Oh, God, I was so burnt out. And then I started getting into software development. And you know what? In software development, I found my artistic side yet again. Not in the beginning, because I was asked to be, you know, the grunt and doing all the analytical stuff. But then I moved up in the ranks, and then I became conceptual. I would be the conceptualizer, and then I started delegating. That's exactly what I do now, anyway. I can pick and choose essentially what I want to do, but when I go in, I'm asked to go in nowadays, look at their current situation, and conceptualize and design the solution for them, and then help impart and implement. So, that's what I grew into eventually, and I utilize, I guess you would say, a lot of my artisticness that I missed very much when I was solid IT, doing what I do now. And especially I enjoy doing YouTube videos and all this other stuff, which a lot of people don't realize, which is exclusive, I guess, now to your show, is that I can vent a lot of my artistic creativity in making the music, because a lot of the music that I use, I custom make myself, and get to do the editing and things that sometimes some of the editing will take forever to do. I would make the iPhone look exactly like the font and everything, even to where the pixels were pixelated like it is on the phone.
Nice.
And you can see the video to this day where this was about reception, and I make the iPhone signal drop all the way to nothing, and then it blinks, and then it goes off and says, "Get a bumper." It was, you know, people would take it for granted, but it took me hours just to make it look.
That's the problem with a lot of this crap. It's like you're thinking 5 minutes, 12 hours later.
So I do very much enjoy, you know, now I'm in a pretty good place. I would say I don't make as much money now as I did in IT. But my hours are a lot less, and my hours are so relaxed. I can leave at any time and go take care of my children. My schedule is just, you know, it's just like it's a trade-off, I would say, for what I have now. God, we have totally digressed in massive proportions.
That's okay.
But I thought it was relevant to what we were.
I know it's relevant. It's
where I digress from jobs being in the creative autistic sense and all this other stuff. I was relating to jobs, and we started with being a vegetarian and things, and digressed from there. So now would be a good time to pause to save the video.
Yeah, I'm thinking probably.